Thank you very much for returning to another presentation on Sri Madhurya Kadambini, the Monsoon Clouds of Sweetness, written by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. In our last discussion, we were talking about the complete independence of Bhakti and the fact that though other spiritual practices need the help of Bhakti in order to reach their perfection, Bhakti has no need of help from any other discipline. In fact, Bhakti infuses karma, jnana, and yoga with life. Whatever the practice may be it yoga, jnana, or karma, Bhakti helps the practitioners of these paths reach their goal and final attainment. Vishwanath writes in his Madhurya Kadambini, there are numerous texts in the Bhagavatam that tell that jnanis, karmis, and yogis each completely depend on Bhakti for attaining perfection in their respective paths. I wanted to begin today by going a little deeper into Sri Vishwanath's presentation regarding the four kinds of jnanis and their positions and what their ultimate attainments are, based upon Vishwanath's own commentary on the Bhagavad Gita Sa'artha Varsini. So the first is highly condemned, and he actually does not attain any spiritual position because he does not take shelter of scriptural directives wherein it is stated that one should take shelter of the practice of bhakti in order to attain success. The second jnani is one who cultivates knowledge according to scripture and does follow prescriptions there for mixing bhakti in with his spiritual practice. Unfortunately, he has misconceptions regarding the nature of Brahman and the Supreme Lord, and those misconceptions lead him to acceptance of the Lord's form being material. Because of this offense to the lotus feet of the Lord, he also is not successful. The third jnani, he cultivates knowledge along with devotion, following scripture, and he adopts bhakti, and he does attain the goal of brahmasayuja. And the fourth is the most fortunate. This jnani practices his jnana according to scriptural directives, but during that practice, he is blessed by the association of a great devotee of the Lord. And by that association, his focus is transferred from the impersonal concept of the Supreme Absolute to acceptance of a personal form of the Lord and the rendering of personal, loving service to the Lord. Ultimately, he becomes the Lord's devotee and attains all fulfillment there. I wanted to go a little deeper into the third of these four types of jnanis because it's important that we understand what's required on the part of the practitioner of jnana who adopts bhakti and actually experiences the Lord during his practice and then ultimately abandons that experience to go on and attain brahmasayuja, or merging with the energy of the Lord, which is commonly referred to as Brahman realization. We find in the third canto the following verse. The unfortunate yogi who has developed love for the Lord, full of all sweet qualities, whose heart is somewhat soft because of devotion, whose bodily hairs stand on end in ecstasy, who is constantly overcome with intense tears of joy, gradually withdraws his hook-like mind from the Lord's form. Vishwanath gives an interesting explanation to this verse as follows. The foolish yogi, who, receiving great mercy and experiencing the sweetness of meditation on the Lord's pastimes, rejects it because he is not fixed in that taste, is considered low class among yogis, even though he is steady in yoga. He is cheated of bhakti ras. By bhakti alone, he attains liberation with realization of pratyaga atma, individual soul, while destroying 21 types of suffering, but he does not attain liberation with realization of paramatma. This yogi has attained bhava for the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, full of nectar of all sweetness and powers, since the Lord is most attractive, possessing the 6 bhagas. Pratilabdha, besides meaning to attain, suggests that he receives but does not respond appropriately. Thus the meaning is, though he received bhava from the sweet form of the Lord, though his heart melted, though his hair stood on end, and though he was constantly afflicted with streams of tears caused by longing, he withdraws the hook of his mind from that form. It is said that one should give up jnana to attain liberation, but there is no rule to give up bhakti to attain liberation. On the contrary, it is forbidden to give up bhakti, for it has just been said in the previous verse, one should not desire to see anything except Vishnu, who is present in one's heart, with a mind steeped in mature devotion. Therefore, the yogi gives up that sweet form only by his own foolish decision. He does so without following rules because his heart is like a hook. He gives up that sweet form. This means that the heart, which was inundated with the sweetness of the Lord, then begins to negate that eagerness for sweetness of the Lord in order to distance himself from eagerness for rasa, for material objects. He does so gradually because it is difficult to withdraw, since the heart has directly experienced that sweetness. Even if he has no direct experience of the sweetness, he can only withdraw his mind by repeated effort, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 7 or 8 times. The hook is made of iron. It does not melt like gold, silver, or butter. It softens a little by applying great heat, but immediately becomes hard again. Thus the verse states that his heart is in the process of melting rather than being fully fluid. The hook, though always bathed in the waters of the sacred Ganga, remains permanently crooked without appreciation of rasa. It is also a cheater because it covers its point with bits of sweet food for attracting greedy fish. The yogi's heart is thus condemned by this analogy. It's quite a comprehensive commentary that Vishwanath gives, but the point needs to be carefully understood. This Brahmavadi who wants to attain Brahma Sayuja, or merging with the energy of the Supreme, Brahman, utilizes bhakti in order to acquire that attainment, and that bhakti actually has an effect on him. But he is so steeped in that desire to attain Brahman realization that he gradually removes his mind, even though he has been personally touched by bhakti and affected by the sweetness of the Supreme Lord. He gradually removes his hook-like mind, which will not melt upon experiencing the Lord. And in that withdrawal, he is able to attain Brahman, which is his goal. Those following the paths of work also depend on bhakti, as Narada said to Vyas. So now we go on to a discussion of those engaged in karma. Those engaged in karma, they follow the varnashram system. They want to engage in material life in such a way that there is enjoyment and the prospect of advancement at the end of life. And they want to do that in such a way that there is no negative reaction to their activities. So this requires very careful adherence to the regulation of varnashram life. According to varna and according to ashram, there are so many rules and regulations. And those on the path of karma kanda, they carefully follow these rules and regulations in their material pursuits. Narada says, if a person, having given up his duties in varnashram, begins the worship of the Lord's lotus feet and happens to deviate or not reach perfection, there is no misfortune for him at all in the future. But what does the person who follows all duties of varnashram but does not worship the Lord gain? So we can see here the demigods bestowing the results of karma. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatana Goswami as follows. The followers of the Varnashram institution accept the regulative principles of the 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders. However, if one carries out the regulative principles of these orders but does not render transcendental service to Krishna, he falls into a hellish condition of material life. O Almighty Lord, in the past many yogis in this world achieved the platform of devotional service by offering all their endeavors unto you and faithfully carrying out their prescribed duties. Through such devotional service, perfected by the process of hearing and chanting about you, they came to understand you, O Infallible One, and could easily surrender to you and achieve your supreme abode. So back to our main subject. Bhakti is never even minutely dependent on jnana, karma, or yoga, but these paths are fully dependent upon bhakti and a mixture of bhakti in order to be successful. We find the following in the Srimad Bhagavatam. For the bhakti yogi who wholeheartedly engages in my devotion, neither cultivation of knowledge nor worldly detachment are ultimately beneficial. So bhakti is clearly beyond the influence of the 3 modes of material nature and is completely independent. This theme is being repeated again and again, just like the pounding of a post, so that we understand the true nature of bhakti, even though knowledge and renunciation may be a little helpful in the beginning. Bhakti is not ultimately dependent upon them. Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatana as follows. The path of speculative knowledge and renunciation is not essential for devotional service. Indeed, good qualities such as nonviolence and control of the mind and senses automatically accompany a devotee of Lord Krishna. Here we find in this verse Sri Chaitanya instructing Sanatana Goswami that all these good qualities that naturally develop from the practice of knowledge, jnana, and from the practice of karma kanda, following all the rules and regulations of proper conduct in human society, all of these godly qualities that come from these spiritual disciplines, they also come automatically to the Lord's devotee without any extraneous endeavor. We find in the Bhagavatam, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jana Yasu Vairagyam Janam Cha Yad Ahaitukam. When one is engaged in the discipline of devotional service to the Supreme Lord, he advances in renunciation and understanding without making any specific effort to acquire them. Vishwanath writes in commenting on this verse, separate endeavor for attaining knowledge and detachment are not necessary in the practice of bhakti, for bhakti itself produces them. Elsewhere, Krishna says, O Uddhava, one who worships only me, giving up all kinds of other activities, is the best among sadhus. Though he understands the benefits of following the dharmas taught in the Vedas, as well as the negative consequences of not doing so, he gives up all such prescribed duties because he considers them to be hindrances to meditating on me. And of course we have Krishna's instruction to Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharmam parityajya mamekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha yishyami ma sucha. Abandon completely all attachment to conventional duties. Seek refuge in me alone. I will free you from all sins. Do not grieve. The Bhagavatam even states that bhakti can on occasion give the results of jnana, karma, and yoga paths without even the slightest engagement in those practices. This is the strength of bhakti. In the Bhagavatam we find this verse, everything that can be achieved by karma, penance, jnana, vairagya, mystic yoga, charity, dharma, and all other auspicious means of perfecting life is easily achieved by my devotee through bhakti. If somehow or other my devotee desires swarga, liberation, or residence in my abode, he easily attains such benediction. On the other hand, the scriptures say that all the benefits attained through these other disciplines are useless without devotion. From the Haribhakta Sudodaya, without devotion to the Lord, birth in the high family, great learning, chanting mantras, and performing austerities all become as useless as the decorations on a dead body. So this statement serves to show the uselessness of any sadhana that is bereft of devotion. The dependence of karma and yoga on conditions of purity in place, time, candidate, materials, and performance is well known from the Smriti scriptures. This is not true for bhakti. In chanting the names of Lord Hari, there are no rules governing either time or place, nor is there any prohibition on chanting if one is in an impure state. Nor is bhakti even dependent upon faith. O best of Bhrigu dynasty, even a single utterance of Krishna's holy name, whether chanted attentively with faith or carelessly without attachment, will deliver any human being, no matter who. Sanatana Goswami, after quoting this verse in Hari Bhakti Vilas, comments as follows. The main fruit of chanting Hari Nam is divine prema. Chanting Krishna's name even once in any manner whatsoever can give liberation, which is nothing more than one of its secondary effects. In the word parigitam, the word pari means that even indistinct or incomplete uttering of the holy name can give such a result. My sincere thanks for taking the time to view this presentation of Gaudiya perspective on spiritual revelation, centered on the teachings of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Madhurya Kadambini. I hope that you will be able to come back and review further presentations, and they nourish your spiritual advancement. Hare Krishna.